First question I have here to start things off is we want to do a break even, and then after the break even's hit, we're going to trail by ParabolicSAR there. So, all right, so I've just chosen, we'll do, I guess, something like a standard 10 tick. After 10 tick profit, then we'll do the break even and plus 1 tick here. And then after that, we'll trail using the ParabolicSAR there. All right, so we'll get BlackBird up and running here. So, all right, double click, add our strategy down here. And I'm just gonna enable it. It's like so, and then click OK. All right. And let's see here. We'll just jump right into the order settings and set things up here. So I guess for this demo here, really the question is about the stop loss. So I'm just gonna do a simple market entry, and then we'll just work on the stop loss here. So since we want some trailing going on here, I'm going to use one of the quick lists here to get things started here. So I'm going to go down to the trailing and go to the ParabolicSAR there. So yeah, just a quick note here, and the next release, there's an additional trailing here. I added one that actually has a break even, so that way people will have a kind of a framework on how to do a break even and then trailing afterwards. So that quick list will be coming in the next update here. For now, I'm going to use the ParabolicSAR here to start things off with. So using the ParabolicSAR, what that's going to do is that in the trailing actions here, right, that set up a trailing rule, moving the stop loss to the ParabolicSAR. So basically, it kind of gave me a little shortcut here, a little bit of a shortcut. So, but I will have to go in and change quite a few things here. Let's see. So, I could leave the initial placement at the ParabolicSAR, or I could go in here and change it and just create a standard, like a standard stop loss offset. Like I could go down here and just create a, a standard 15 tick fixed stop loss to start with, but let's see. I guess I'll keep this interesting here. So instead of just doing a standard, fixed tick offset to start with, I'll just leave it on the ParabolicSAR here. So I'll just go back to indicator value, and we can see our ParabolicSAR is still on there, and I just need to remember to set the offset back to 0 here. All right, so I decided I'm gonna leave my initial placement at the ParabolicSAR. So the question I got wasn't specific as to how to start the stop loss off, so I'll just leave it at the ParabolicSAR, and we'll just focus on working on the trailing actions here. So I'm gonna leave this trailing rule here in place, but I'll just give it a name here. So I'll just call it the trail of ParabolicSAR, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a trailing rule, and this new trailing rule is going to be our it's going to be this condition number 1 here, this rule number 1 here. So after 10 ticks of profit, then we'll move the stop loss to break even plus 1. All right. So let's go back into our trailing rule here. So let's give this a name here. So do a break even plus 1 at at 10 ticks there, something like that for a name. All right. So the first thing is we want to wait. All right, we're going to wait for 10 ticks in profit. Right. So if you're waiting for something to happen, then that's the same thing as putting in a delay. Right. So we're going to use the delay here, and we're going to just set it to 10 ticks. And we're going to use the ticks in direction, so that in direction would be in the direction of the trade, right? So once you get 10 ticks, once price moves 10 ticks in the direction of the trade, that means you got 10 ticks in profit, right? So if the market moves against the direction of the trade, right, then that would be 10 ticks of loss. Right, so against the direction would be a loss, and in direction of the trade would be a profit there. So, all right. So once we get to 10 ticks, in the direction of the trade, then we want to move our stop loss. So we definitely don't want to move it to the last price, right? Because whenever the last price touches your stop loss gets filled. Right, so moving your stop loss to wherever that last price is, right? Remember, the last price is always where the market is trading at, right? You can see it right here in the market info panel here, right? You have ask, last, and bid, and so that last price, is always where the market last traded. So we definitely don't want to move our stop loss to the last unless you want to close out the position. So, but what we do want to do is we want to move our stop loss to the entry price. Remember, your break even is the same as the entry price. So the entry price is your break even. And then we wanted to do a plus 1 tick in profit there. So we're going to move it to the entry price plus 1 tick offset. So that's a break even plus 1 there. All right. And so that's it for a break even, right? You just have to set your initial delay, which is, how many ticks of profit are you waiting for before you move to break even? And then you just move the stop loss to the entry price, plus whatever kind of offset you want from that break even. So, and there's no repeat, right? Break evens can only occur once, so there's no repeat there. So, okay, and then all right. And then next we need to follow up on the ParabolicSAR here. So the way the ParabolicSAR trailing rule is set up is that there's no delay, there's no trigger, so this rule is just going to start firing off immediately. It's just so the trailing rule is going to look at this ParabolicSAR rule, and it's going to see, well, there's nothing I'm waiting for, and there's no trigger, so it's just going to start moving, trailing the stop loss, and moving it, following. It's going to move to the ParabolicSAR, or it's going to follow the ParabolicSAR immediately. So what we need is we need a delay in here, right? So we want the break even to occur first, and then the ParabolicSAR trailing afterwards. So we need to put a delay in here. So let's put say a delay of 11 ticks, something like that, right? So the break even will happen first, once we get to 10 ticks in profit, and then the trailing the ParabolicSAR, well, it's going to wait until we get 11 ticks in profit there. So Now the question is, in what order will these trailing rules, in what order will BlackBird be executing these trailing rules? Well, there is no order to how trailing rules are executed. All trailing rules are always being evaluated to be executed. So BlackBird's always trying to execute every trailing rule. And that's why there's a delay. So a delay can prevent a trailing rule from being evaluated, because the delay has to be met first, right? So you have to get past the delay first before you can get to the trigger. And then you have to get past the trigger before you can get to the action. So the only order of execution of things is the delay has to be completed first, and then the trigger has to be completed next, and then the action will occur, and then the repeat will occur afterwards, right? So before that, keep in mind the action is what's doing all the trailing, right? So the action is what's moving your stop loss. So if you don't want the action to occur, then that's what the trigger and the delay is for. So depending on exactly how how the behavior of your stop loss is, it kind of determines do you just need a simple delay, or do you need a little more complicated triggering action here, component, such as if you get really complex, you could use a bloodhound signal to trigger a trailing rule, so the trailing rule would just sit there idle, waiting for a bloodhound signal to happen, and then the action can take place, once a bloodhound signal occurs. Or you could wait for a profit or loss. You could even wait for an order status to change. So an order status means you're evaluating, the order, some other order that's occurring here. So like anyways, that's another whole new topic there. I don't want to get too far off. So there's other videos that discuss the order status. So, just kind of staying with the general theme here. So to make sure that trailing rules don't start firing off immediately, right? So for example, if we didn't have this initial delay, if there's no initial delay, then as soon as that stop loss is placed, and as soon as we got one tick of movement, then this trailing rule would get executed immediately, because there's no delay, there's no trigger, so we're not waiting for a delay, we're not having to wait for a trigger to happen, and so the action just gets executed immediately. So instantly, the stop loss will just move to break even +1, instantaneously. So, but putting this delay in there ensures that this rule has to wait for 10 ticks in profit before the action can move the stop loss to break even +1. There, so, all right, and of course, same thing for the ParabolicSAR. So, so the stop loss will be placed at the ParabolicSAR when it first gets submitted to the market, right? That's its initial placement. But the stop loss is just going to sit there on the ParabolicSAR. It'll sit there until we get, our 10 ticks, which will, execute the break even, and then the trailing the ParabolicSAR, that has to wait until we get to 11 ticks in profit, and then the ParabolicSAR trailing can happen here. So, and then the other component that determines, which trailing rule gets executed is the evaluate using, right? So if I had a bunch more rules here, the evaluate using, it's going to use the action that moves the stop loss closest to price, right? So remember, this is the action component over here. So whichever action is going to move the stop loss closest to the price, that is the rule that always will get executed here. So for example, right, we have one action that's going to be this action here is going to be our break even plus 1, and then the parabolic SAR. So, you know, let's say both delays have happened, right? So our break even has triggered, and then right afterwards we get the 11 ticks. So now the trail parabolic SAR can happen, right? So now both trailing rules, you know, are free to happen. So so once we get to 11 ticks in profit, that doesn't mean that the stop loss is going to get moved to the parabolic SAR right away, because remember our evaluate using says, you know, execute the trailing rule that will move the stop loss closest to price. So if the parabolic SAR is underneath our break even plus 1, you know, BlackBird's not going to move the stop loss backwards, back down to the parabolic SAR, because that would be moving the stop loss further away from price, you know. But BlackBird's going to follow the rule that's going to move the stop loss closest to price. So if this action here of the break even plus 1, if that's closer to where the market is, then this rule will then this rule stands, or this action stands, and the moving to the parabolic SAR will get ignored until the parabolic SAR, you know, exceeds our break even plus 1. You know, once the parabolic SAR starts getting closer and closer to where the market is, then this parabolic SAR trailing rule will start executing, you know, according to our evaluate using. So anyway, so let's follow this up with a visual. You know, that really kind of needs a visual explanation. So let's put our parabolic SAR on the chart. And let's see, 2, 2, and 2, using all the standard settings there. And let me just change the color here so we don't have too much orange on the chart. Okay, there we go. There's our parabolic SAR. All right. Now, one thing to know is that remember, we're using an indicator, you know, to place our stop loss. So right now, you definitely couldn't do a short trade, because that's going to put your stop loss in the wrong place, right? So if I hit, you know, go short, you know, we can see we're going to get an error because, you know, it's telling us that our stop loss can't be placed below the market, right? Because our parabolic SAR is below the market for, you know, so you can't place your stop loss below the market for a short trade there. So, yeah, so just keep in mind when you're using an indicator, you know, to move your stop loss, you're locked in to the direction of a trade that you can take based on your stop loss indicator here. So, all right, so let's we'll do a long here. We'll go long. So we can see our parabolic SAR, or I mean our stop loss is sitting way down here at the parabolic SAR, like so. And with that, let's move the market up. We'll get that market moving up here. And so now we just have to wait for 10 ticks in profit. I'll move this up a little faster. All right, there was our 10 ticks. Boom, we're at break even. Now we can see that our parabolic SAR is well below where our stop loss is, right? So that trailing the parabolic SAR, it's not going to execute because, remember, our evaluate using. So let's go in here. So our evaluate using is we're going to follow, is BlackBird's going to follow, whichever trailing rule is going to move the stop loss closest to price, right? So, so right now where the stop loss is at is much closer to price than where the parabolic SAR is at. So, so before the trailing the parabolic SAR can start happening, the parabolic SAR has to pass. It has to pass the location of where our stop loss is. So, so it's gonna take a little while before that parabolic SAR moves up past our stop loss, where our stop loss currently is. So all right, let me start moving the market up here, and we'll get that to happen. All right, and I'll just crank it up. So, and keep in mind that when you're using a indicator-based kind of trailing rule here, if you're when you're moving your stop loss according to an indicator, indicators only typically only update themselves once per bar. So that means your stop loss will move once the bar closes and the indicator updates itself. So just kind of by default, attaching your stop loss to an indicator by default just kind of means your stop loss only moves once the bar is closed. But there's other factors involved that determine that, so it's not 100% hard and fast rule. So, okay, now we can see the parabolic SAR there is now finally moved up past our break-even +1, and now the stop loss starts trailing the parabolic SAR there. So, all right, well, so that's it. Let me take a look and see if there's any questions on this. So let's see, yeah, all right, so we have a follow-up question here. So can the initiating point of where the parabolic SAR starts be offset? Absolutely, yep. So you can offset everything within BlackBird, right? Having offset capabilities, pretty important. Nobody ever wants to just, place their stop loss or profit target, exactly on an indicator. Everybody wants to have some kind of a offset, kind of capability or some kind of offset, movement. So, so what we can do here is, so let's go into the options tab. So down here where the initial placement is, we can open up our parabolic SAR indicator, and there's an offset right there. All right, so we can take an offset, whatever, if you want. You can move it 5 ticks below the parabolic SAR, or put your stop loss 5 ticks above the parabolic SAR for its initial placement. So, right. So how about if we'll do this here. We'll go 5 ticks below the parabolic SAR, And then in the trailing rules here, so in the trailing action, right, we could take the trail the ParabolicSAR rule, and we can open up the action, and then open up our ParabolicSAR indicator, and we could do a 1 tick offset like that as well. All right, let's move the market down here. We'll do a short trade. Get that ParabolicSAR to flip on us. There we go. Now we can take a short. So there we go. So we got the ParabolicSAR right there, and our stop loss is offset, 5 ticks away from that ParabolicSAR. And we're gonna get our break even here in just a moment. There we go, break even. And now we just have to wait for that ParabolicSAR to come down. All right, we can see our ParabolicSAR is sitting right on the stop loss. One more bar. There we go. So there's our ParabolicSAR. We can see our stop loss is following it right behind it. 1 tick behind it. All right, Bob, so that look good. Let's let me open this up here, and I'll just remove all these offsets here. Just clear them out, and then you can go in here and put in whatever kind of offset you feel like. So you'll notice that the offset section is added to almost all of the menu items. So essentially any menu that deals with price, that deals with some kind of price value. So this menu here, it deals with price. Right, these are all components of setting some kind of a price. Whether it just be raw prices, just raw bar prices, or it can be an indicator price, or the swing point prices. And the linear regression channel is also a price. That linear regression operates on the price panel. So these are all various ways of getting price values here. So any menu that deals with prices is always going to have this offset section attached to it. So you can add or subtract an offset. Let's put it back to the indicator value. There we go. There. All right, let me save and close that. Okay, let's see what question we got here. Let's see. So Bob is asking, so in a short trade, can you make the ParabolicSAR, let's see, initiate at the high of the entry bar rather than the swing point? So Bob, when you say can you make the SAR, I think you mean stop loss, right? BlackBird can't modify an indicator. So it sounds like, so I think I get your point there. So you want to, for a short trade, instead of using a ParabolicSAR or some other, you want to, you'd rather use some totally different, totally different indicator. No. There's so your initial placement, there's only one menu here for your initial placement, and this menu applies for both long and short there. So to keep things kind of simple, Otherwise, you know, I'd got to say BlackBird would even just be twice as complicated if you had two indicators, one for a long trade and one for a short trade. So right now, you know, whatever indicator you're using to set a stop loss, you know, that indicator applies to both long trades and short trades there. You know, and yeah, if we open up the indicator window, well, you know, that's just for selecting an indicator. So there's no there's no component here to select an indicator for a long trade and a different indicator for a short trade. So yeah, let's see here. All right, so it looks like that takes care of Bob's. And let's see. All right, so Frank. All right, let me turn the microphone on there for you.
Hi, Zach. I'm thinking out loud here for a minute. If in using the example that you have here,
yes,
and you can't modify the parameters of an indicator. Once you got to a certain point, could you then set it up so that you will, let's say in this case here, using the SAR but at an accelerated setting?
Absolutely. Yep. So all right, so we'll start our ParabolicSAR trailing with we'll just use the standard 2, 2, and 2 settings to start with, and then we'll add a new trailing rule. So let's do let's see, how about at it does take the ParabolicSAR quite a ways to catch up, so we'll say at probably it's going to require at least 30 ticks of profit here. So at 30 ticks, and so let's up this to 30 ticks like that. And then our action here, we need to change this to the ParabolicSAR. So we're going to go to an indicator value. So there we go. Now we have access to using indicators. And go in here, and let's see, acceleration. Yeah, so what should we do? Up that to 4 or 5? I'm not all that familiar with the ParabolicSAR, but I guess here I'll just up it to 5. Make it really exaggerated. Click OK. And then how about if we do like a -1 tick offset, just because the ParabolicSAR is accelerating so quickly. And then the repeat, so we want our stop loss to keep following that ParabolicSAR, so we need to set our repeat to indefinitely. And right, so we want the repeat to happen every bar, once per bar. And so there we go. So again, just kind of looking at the bigger picture, you know, BlackBird's going to be evaluating all 3 rules every time, and the rule that gets executed is determined by the evaluate using here. So BlackBird's going to evaluate every single trailing rule, and it's going to find the one that's going to move the stop loss closest to price. So we know that this trailing rule here, because it has an accelerated ParabolicSAR, that eventually this is going to be the trailing rule that always trumps over the other 2, because this ParabolicSAR is going to be closest to price, or closest to the market, than the other 2 trailing rules are. So, all right, and then you know we put this 30 tick delay in here so that this accelerated ParabolicSAR doesn't kick in too soon. So let's click OK, and let's get that other ParabolicSAR on the chart. And I believe I set an acceleration of 5. And all right, so we got the 2 colored dots there. And we'll try and find a setting here that's a little more exaggerated. Yeah. Let's see, let's increase our max acceleration there, see what happens. There we go. All right. Increase that max acceleration there, let's just get this again, 0.8. All right. So let me go modify the indicator settings here. There we go. So open up the indicator again and hit configure, and let's increase that to 0.8 there. Okay, so now Blackbird's matching the indicators on the chart, and let's see here. Let's move this upward here. Close this out. And all right, so I'm going to get the ParabolicSAR to flip on us, and we can get a long trade going here. All right, so our stop loss, it's going to be trailing the purple ParabolicSAR until we get to 30 ticks of profit. And then it'll start following the red dot ParabolicSAR. So let's see, we're at, oh, shoot. Maybe 30, yeah, 30 ticks was not quite enough. So let me, I'm going to let this follow through and figure out how many ticks we need to wait for here. Looks like we're going to have to wait for about 50 or 60 ticks. But instantly started following the accelerated ParabolicSAR. Let's see here. Yeah, so I probably should change that to about 60 ticks here. All right, so let me go make the changes. All right, so instead of 30, we'll go with 60, and I'll just update the name and update the quantity there. All right. All right, I'm just going to get our ParabolicSAR to flip again and set this up for another long trade. All right, looks like we're almost ready for, there we go. All right, long trade. Okay, 10 ticks. There's our break even. All right, looks like on this next bar here, we should start trailing the purple ParabolicSAR. There we go. All right, yeah, so now we're trailing that purple ParabolicSAR, or the slower SAR. There we go. And so let's move this up here and we'll get to our 60 ticks in profit. All right, there we go. So still trailing the slower ParabolicSAR, purple one. There we go. All right, so just need 10 more ticks in profit. So a couple more bars. Let's see, we probably need 2 more bars. And then our stop loss will start trailing the faster ParabolicSAR, or the red dot. All right, there we go on this bar. Now we're trailing the red dot ParabolicSAR, the faster ParabolicSAR, minus a tick. Remember, I think I put a negative 1 tick offset on there. So we're just 1 tick below that ParabolicSAR. There we go. Yep. All right, so there we go. Yeah. So yeah. So that does kind of bring up a possibility for Bob's previous question about using different indicators for the initial placement. So you have to decide on something for the initial placement. However, let's see. Just kind of thinking that if there's something we can do in the trailing rules where you could move your stop loss, to a different location based on a short trade. All right. Yeah, I think there is something possible here. So, this gets really kind of gets really complex when you're trying to create a separate set of logic for a short trade versus a long trade, but it looks like it's possible. So we could use the trigger here. We could use the price, versus indicator, and so like for example, we I guess you could use something like the ParabolicSAR to help you figure out if you're in a long trade or short trade, and we could just see, is price above the ParabolicSAR, below the ParabolicSAR, or you could use some other indicator that may determine whether you're going to be in a long trade or short trade. So there might be something else other than the ParabolicSAR that works better for your system here, but doing something like this. So let's put the ParabolicSAR in here. So yeah, so I could compare the closing price of the bar to the indicator, and what I did is I set my long mode and short mode both to the same. So for short mode, if A is equal or below B, so in other words, if the closing price is below B, the ParabolicSAR, actually I'll just keep this simple here, we'll just say the close is below the ParabolicSAR, like so. So now if you're in a long trade, the goal is that the closing price would never be below the ParabolicSAR. So this trigger would never happen on a long trade. That's kind of the goal, is figuring out an indicator, finding an indicator that would prevent the long mode from ever executing. So in theory, we could say that, well, the closing price is always going to be below the parabolic SAR when we're in a short trade. So A will always be below B in a short trade, but closing price will never be below the parabolic SAR on a long trade. So therefore, this trigger would never happen on a long trade. So therefore, we could create a trailing rule that that can only so we can create a trailing rule that only executes when we're in a short trade. By using this kind of trigger to try and approximate when we're in a short trade. And so with this trigger, you could then move the stop loss to wherever you want. So we could move, like you wanted to move the stop loss to, let's see, so for a short trade to the high of the bar, and you could put a couple of tick, a tick offset if you wanted to. There. So let's see here. Let's see. So we could do something like that, and so let's see what happens. So, okay, so in theory, we'll have to test this to see, but so what should be happening is on a short trade, our stop loss is going to get, it's going to initially get placed on the parabolic SAR, but then immediately this trailing rule will execute immediately because there's no delay, and for in a short trade, the closing price should be below the parabolic SAR. So as long as the trigger is true, immediately the action will execute, and it'll move our stop loss to the high there. And so let's give this a test and see what happens. So let's move the market down and we'll get the parabolic SAR to flip on us. All right, so go short. Parabolic SAR is up there. And let's see, it's not moving. And all right, yeah, so that did not move as expected. All right, I'm going to move the market up here and set this up for another short trade. Let's see. So let me take another look at the trailing rules. See what might have happened. And oh, right. So again, the point I tried to make earlier about using indicators. So the stop loss didn't move immediately because, again, we're using an indicator. So we had to wait for at least one bar to close before BlackBird could get the parabolic SAR indicator value. All right, yeah, so this rule, yeah, won't be instantaneous. But let me check the action here because it looked like it moved it. So, oh, Yeah, geez. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're in a short trade, and I set this up for a long trade, so I got my prices backwards. So on a short trade, we want to move it to the bar high. So, and actually it would be, we want it to be the bar high of the execution bar. So since we have to wait one bar because we're using an indicator value, so that's going to be a look back of 2. So that's going to be the high of 2 bars back. And then we want a positive 2 ticks. So the high price plus 2 ticks. There, okay. So that's what happens. I had my prices flipped by accident and reverse that. All right, now let's do this. All right, just had to wait for one more bar to close to get our slow parabolic SAR to flip. Oh, actually, sorry, no, we don't want it to flip. Ah, darn it. Okay, well, let me move the market down here, and we'll get set up for this short trade here. Actually, I guess I could, yeah, let me test. I'll test the long. I'll test the long here and make sure that our stop loss isn't going to move to the bar low. So basically I want to make sure that that fourth trailing rule is not going to execute on a long trade. And no, it did not execute. Good. I'm just going to wait. Going to get one more bar to close, so that way I at least have 2 bars closing. So I just want to make sure that our stop loss doesn't jump up to the bar low here, and it doesn't look like it is. I'll just close one more bar just to make sure, just an extra double check, triple check. Okay, good. Yeah, so it looks like yeah, so that trailing rule that's only supposed to trigger on short trades looks like it's not triggering, so it's not moving our stop loss up to the bar high or low. So that's good. That looks pretty good. So I'll close this out, and we'll move the market down and set up for a short trade, and make sure the stop loss is executing correctly for a short trade. So I think as soon as this bar closes, we should get our stop loss moving down to about here, the high of the, actually let's see, it's going to be the high of the execution bar plus a couple of ticks. And there it is. So, all right. So actually, remember I told it to use 2 bars back, but actually I didn't need to go 2 bars back. So it actually, so that was our execution bar, but I told it to go 2 bars back. So because I thought we were going to have to wait for a second bar, but so it did move our stop loss correctly to how I set it up. So it took the bar high and then added 2 ticks. But that was 1 extra bar back. So let's let me set this up again. Move the market up, set it up for another short trade, and in the meantime, I'm going to go into our rules here. So this short only move, and go in here. So instead of 2 bars back, actually we only need 1 bar back. There. Okay. So I think that should be working correctly now. All right, so let's go short. There we go. All right, so our oops, I didn't mean to grab that, darn it. And I grabbed that stop loss by accident and turned off the trailing roll, so shoot, I kind of mucked that up. So let's, yeah, we're gonna have to reset this here. Actually, let me just get price to move up a couple bars and I'll set it up again. All right, let's go short. There we go. And there, as soon as the bar closed, there we go. Our stop loss moved to the bar high plus 2 ticks. And yeah. And then there we go. We got our 10 ticks in profit, moved to break even. Yeah, so there's kind of a, one way to kind of get around of setting up, moving your stop loss for a short, setting up rules for a short only trade. There's kind of one workaround. Really this is kind of a workaround. So the key was using this trigger, finding a triggering event or a triggering condition rather, finding a triggering condition that will, detect when you're in a short trade. So that way we can get this trailing rule, to only fire off or get this trailing rule to only execute, when we're in a short trade. So that's kind of the key there, is something like that, So, maybe price versus indicator, maybe that isn't a good solution. Maybe just looking at an indicator value, maybe you can find some kind of indicator, just some kind of raw indicator, and looking at its value will determine whether you're in a long trade or short trade. But there's no direct trigger. Maybe that's something we can actually add in here. There's a simple trigger that just determines if you're in a long trade or short trade. So actually the trade signal trigger, remember, so trade signal is these guys up here. That's right. So it's your trade signals up here. So this actually wouldn't do it. So you can see there's no setting here for whether it's a long signal or a short signal. So for now, it had to be some kind of indicator value or comparing price to an indicator or something. Well, actually, you could do this. This price versus indicator, you could change it to an indicator value. So if you need be, you could compare an indicator to an indicator as well. So so maybe comparing one indicator to another indicator might be a better solution in determining whether you're in a long trade or short trade. So maybe that'll work for you. So there's a couple of different options there for you to explore. So all right, let's see. So with that, let me I'll save this here in case anybody we'd like to get a copy of those rules. So let me do a save as. So we've got those saved, and let's see. Yeah, Frank is asking, is there a way of determining which rule is executing? Let's see. Yes, there is. Although you would need. Let's see here. Let's open up the output window. I don't think the version I have installed provides any feedback to the output window, but let's see. All right, I need to get another bar to close here, and we'll see if we get some output. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, great. Let me just double check. Let's see what version I have installed. And, oh, okay, yeah, great. So if you open up your output window, BlackBird gives all kinds of feedback information to help you debug your system. All right, so this is going to be telling you, which trailing rules, are being executed and which ones are not. So I opened up this late. So right now we're only seeing this trail ParabolicSAR rule. If I opened this up earlier, we would see there'd be entries. There'd be entries in the output window for the other three trailing rules, and we would see that the other three trailing rules are left in a waiting state. So right now, so the trailing rule that's going to follow the accelerated ParabolicSAR, that's going to be left. That's going to be left in a waiting state, which happened much earlier, way before I opened up the output window. So we're not seeing it, but we will see it here shortly. As soon as we get our 60 ticks in profit, then the trailing rule that's going to follow the accelerated ParabolicSAR, it will have an entry in here, and it'll have an entry that says it's executing. So and there is no data on this. There's no documentation or anything. So yeah. So for now, there actually is no help on this. Really, this is just a debugging tool for us. Let's see, where are we at? We're at 40 ticks of profit. All right, we just got to keep that market going down. And yeah, so let's see, what did I call that trailing rule? Open this up. Yeah, trail ParabolicSAR at 60 ticks. That's what that trailing rule is called. Yeah. So let's see here. So if you want to, so if you're using this output window, it definitely is good to use good names. Name your trailing rules appropriately, and bingo, there we go. So we can see there's our trail ParabolicSAR at 60 ticks. So we can see that it now kicked in once we got to our 60 ticks in profit, and so that rule, so that rule is now executing here. So, and we can see, right, just the trailing rule that's following the slower SAR. It's also executing, but our evaluate using, is determining that the evaluate using is determining that the trailing rule, using the faster parabolic SAR is the one that it's going to follow. So yeah, so here there's we can see there's an entry here that, right, where BlackBird has determined that the trailing rule that's using the faster accelerated parabolic SAR, that it has the price, closest. It has the price closest to the market price. All right, guys. With that, have a great weekend, and hope to see you guys next week.